Oh, let me tell you something. Busting makes me feel good.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Blockbusting, the podcast where we love to hate movies. I'm your host, Jay Light. Joining me today, it's wonderful Mike Rowe from LAist,
yes.
KPCC, the Pack Theater.
A pleasure to have you, have myself on this show. It is a pleasure. I'm so used to hosting things, so I feel like, wait, I'm the guest. I'm the guest on your hallowed ground of the Blockbusting show, and I'm very excited to have a reason to trash a movie and hope that it doesn't ruin my career. So.
Yeah, well, that's the nice thing about I've had a handful of folks who are in the criticism world but none of them also have a comedy understanding, and no, we're all just having a good time. People who are listening to this are like, why are you trashing things? Because it's fun.
It's fun. Yeah, it's how did this get made? Didn't ruin Paul Scheer's career, so it's fine.
Yeah. Speaking of career, you have a great book that just came out very recently, the 30 Rock book.
Yes. There's an in-depth history of 30 Rock. It was a real joy to put together. Had the chance to talk to childhood heroes of mine. Like, I got to talk with Pee Wee Herman, which was rad, about his time on 30 Rock. I got to talk with Ferris Bueller himself, Matthew Broderick, about his couple of cameos on the show. It was
nice.
I very much enjoyed. Yeah, exactly. Good old Cooter. Cooter Burger.
I remember I loved 30 Rock so much, and I've gone back and I've seen some stuff here and there. There were a couple seasons that I missed. I know that you got, you're going full in depth. What was the most surprising thing you learned when you were working on the book?
I think the thing that was weird going back and watching the show, it's not that much later, like 15 years since it first started, like 10 years after it went off the air, was just being like, oh, how has society changed since we did this show? And it's like, oh, they do blackface multiple times over the course of this show, where it's like, oh, I guess that's how white people tried to seem woke in around 2010 was putting characters in blackface. But it was real weird to go back and see just how fast things have changed in our society. I also think that it was really fascinating for me to learn a little bit behind the scenes about how little faith the network had in 30 Rock to start out, just because they picked up 30 Rock and they picked up Studio 60, which is their big is like the high level drama about late night television
from Aaron Sorkin.
And I talked with I talked with Bradley Whitford and Nate Cordry, who did that show, about, basically everyone sort of thought like 30 Rock was being picked up as like a favor to Lorne Michaels and Tina Fey. Mm-hmm. And like, it would be this little nothing show, but keep a good relationship with them and the network. And then everyone expected Studio 60 would be the big hits, but it didn't end up going that way. So it was fascinating to hear about it. Especially Nate Cordry was very cocky about, admittedly, he says like he's very cocky about how the show was going to do. And he also thought it was genius until he was hanging out at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater with his comedy friends and overheard them trashing it and talking about how terrible Studio 60 is. And he was like, oh no, is this bad? But it's like Aaron Sorkin dialogue, and I love Studio 60 while also acknowledging all of its flaws. So it was fascinating to get to talk with these people about what their perceptions were at the time, and those little details that get lost to history.
Cool. I mean, I've never seen Studio 60. I feel like it's one of those shows that at the time when it came out, I was not interested in TV dramas really, except for Lost. I didn't really care about Sorkin stuff. I wasn't a West Wing guy.
A thing I learned about Lost from this project is that 30 Rock did a lot of recurring Lost jokes. There's like at least one every season of the show where they throw in a reference to like there's a bit where Kenneth starts talking about Jacob, and it's like,
oh yeah, that's right.
And there's so many great bits where it's like, yeah, they loved Lost too. So they're like, let's do more Lost references.
Cram them in.
Yeah, but I was going to say just about Studio 60, just it's the pilot, the dialogue's super well written. I was enough of a self-pretentious comedy nerd to enjoy it because it's like, yes, comedy is important. It's basically the premise of the show. But but Aaron Sorkin does not know how to write sketches. So whenever there's a sketch, it is the worst sketch you have ever seen. But then, there's also an amazing monologue that Nate Cordry gives where he talks about how the place where they shoot Studio 60 is like, this is the opera house of comedy. This is, he just talks about, like, he yells at his parents to not call them skits. And then he also he's like being so pretentious about this. And then finally his parents go, well, your brother's in Afghanistan. And it's the best. Anyway,
I'll have to check that. I mean, anytime that we can convince somebody to not call them our little skits, that works for me.
Exactly. Yeah, he explains like how like a skit is what the jocks do during class, and where they dress up like the cheerleaders. But yeah, like so check out the book. There's actually I am a pretentious comedy person who I identify with Studio 60, and I also really enjoy actual comedy, so I enjoy 30 Rock.
Yes, and as somebody who also enjoys actual comedy, I can see why you hated 2001's Double Take. Which,
yes,
it's what we're here for today, Mike.
It was the worst movie. I saw this with my mom, who loved bad movies. I remember seeing the trailer though, and me and my friends were real excited because it was I remember just everybody at school was quoting. It was a different time, so everybody was quoting you're not representing, you're not keeping it real, that bits. And it was the trailers sell you on the idea that this is going to be Orlando Jones and Eddie Griffin trading places and taking out each other's personas, and comedy hijinks ensue. Sure. But it's actually like a weird, twisty thriller caper movie, kind of. But I was looking at the reviews for this. I saw someone called it traffic for nitwits, which I was like, yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, it's definitely not what I expected. I mean, the only info I had about this movie was you saying that you hated it, and then I went and looked at the Wikipedia page just to get like a vague idea of what was going on. The poster makes it look like it's going to kind of be maybe like a Prince and the Pauper style, like switch 'em up kind of comedy. It's got a cute dog on it. What's not to like, right? And
right. There's a dog. I think that's my mom's main qualification for liking a movie. So already sold to her.
Oh yeah. But I mean, it's one of those movies that I don't even recall it coming out. I don't remember it. And that's never a good sign. Yeah,
it's not exactly a classic of the genre. It's I remember that the ads playing a lot on TV, and then I think it was like when Orlando Jones was sort of starting to be a breakout star after he was in a bunch of 7-Up ads and that sort of thing. And then Eddie Griffin, I think, was sort of, he was still a big factor in comedy at the time.
Yeah, he was definitely, this is right after Deuce Bigalow comes out. And then, he still is able to, make it with Undercover Brother after this.
I felt like the plot, movie 3. Like the more successful version of this would be like Ace Ventura, which is kind of like the investigation combined with comedy. But I was like, there's not enough funny here, and the plot is overly convoluted for no reason. So
this is one of my favorite review quotes from Christy Lemire. Double Take is so convoluted, it's so unnecessarily mind-boggling. It should be called Quintuple Take.
Basically, that's about right. It's everyone changes. I just remember watching this movie. I was already upset that it does not meet the premise that the TV commercials had outlined of them switching places, because like they trade characters, but like especially Eddie Griffin does very little as Orlando Jones character, and Orlando Jones like does an Eddie Griffin voice in like 2 scenes, and then sort of just is like kind of a little bit wild character, but doesn't really commit to it beyond that. And so it's just sort of like not really doing that either.
He's so non-committal. He can't even, when he's supposed to be playing Eddie Griffin's character, he barely has the mustache that he's clearly ripped from his own character's hair. Barely does it. It's not even on there properly. It's askew. No. He didn't use the right amount of spirit gum. Come on, dude.
Come on. You have to be a spirit gum expert. Be able to. Yeah. Be big into the spirit gum. Make sure that you get your practice down. And if you're going to try and pull off some spy moves, you have to really go for it.
Yeah. Also, if you're going to look for spirit gum in the middle of the Texas desert while you're on the run, you got to commit fully.
Yeah. Like, I'm a comic book fan, and like, this movie does the you would think I'd be on board when they bring back a character who we thought was dead, but it was like, no, there's no reason for this character to be alive. Why is this what's happening near the end of the movie?
Yeah, I mean, so let's basically, if you probably haven't seen this movie, people listening.
Please, I hope you haven't.
I hope you haven't. It's on IMDb TV if you want to watch it with ads.
You watch it for free. And there were way less ads than I expected. I went in expecting it to be like, oh, I'm going to have like a big bathroom break. I'm going to have to, read a little, etc. during these ad breaks, because there's no way I am paying money to watch Double Take. But no, it was like they've got like one or two ads a break, and I was like, yeah, sure, I can live with that.
Breezy.
Yeah.
But the premise of the movie is it's an action comedy, and it's about Orlando Jones's character is a investment banker of some kind who is basically finds himself wrapped up in a money laundering scandal. Eddie Griffin is, you think he's some sort of just like streetwise kind of guy. Man. Yeah, con man. He cons him out of some money at the very beginning of the movie. And then all of a sudden you find out that he's actually the guy who's trying to protect Orlando Jones and keep him out of the hands of the corrupt people involved in the drug cartel. And I'm already starting to lose the plot a little bit just describing this.
And like it turns out he's actually an FBI agent, but he like the Orlando Jones hears that this character was 5150'd out of the FBI. Because of he is nuts, and then it seems like, well, maybe that's not true, and it's like, oh no, wait, it is true. He really is crazy, but is for some reason still working with the FBI. Yeah, and I'm like, why did he need to con him out of money at the beginning to set up this whole thing? Like, why did anything in this movie happen? None of it makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's especially, I feel like action comedy is kind of a hard concept, a hard sort of genre to do really right. I am having a hard time myself thinking of any action comedy that really does it well, because all the ones that come to mind are really bad ones. Like a lot of the Jackie Chan comedy oeuvre is like The Tuxedo, not great.
I mean, I was about to say like Rush Hour, I feel like is sort of like the closest you get to succeeding in this genre, but like
that's the pinnacle.
Yeah, Rush Hour is like the top of it, and I think that like this movie could have either committed harder to the comedy or harder to the action, but it's like a wacky action movie and with like weird music cues and also a lot of racism against Mexicans. Yes, it's like I was like, wow.
There's a lot of, I mean, it's a different time. There's a lot of really heavy-handed racial stuff, and the problem, like the biggest problem I have with that in general in comedies, and especially in this movie, is sometimes you're clearly doing something that is like a racial stereotype that is meant to be a joke, but there's no actual joke there. Like the joke is just the stereotype. Like if you're gonna go there, if you're gonna do racial comedy, at least make sure there's an actual written joke.
Yeah, give me a punchline. Give me some sort of social commentary. Not to bring back to my book too much, but one thing that we talked a lot about when doing the 30 Rock book is I talked with one of the crew members on that show who was black, and he talked about how when they first did the first blackface joke they do on that show, he didn't mind it because it was making us point about society. It was, it was like, whether do white women or black men have it harder? So Tracy Jordan and Jenna switch places with each other to try to prove their point in the dumbest way possible. But like then when they did it again, it was the joke was not related to society. There was not a point to it anymore. And so that was when this crew member I talked to said that like it hurt. And like, I think it's the same thing here. Like, it's like doing the stereotype isn't enough. Like you need to, and it's written by a white guy. Like the movie is like written and directed by Don Gallo, who famously did Midnight Run, which is like a classic of a caper movie, and probably. But I think this sort of shows what happens when you go back to this decades later when he's older and maybe not as in touch anymore.
Right. Like if you're gonna be doing, the closest they're getting to any sort of good social commentary about it is on the train when you have Orlando Jones and Eddie Griffin have switched outfits. Eddie Griffin's in the suit. Amtrak guy is super nice to him, hates Orlando Jones, super mean to Orlando Jones. As soon as the guy in the suit with money shows up, oh, everything's okay. And that's the closest it gets, Yeah,
and it's even that's kind of muddied because he's like, he just keeps telling the other guy like, oh, you were rude to me, which he kind of was. Like he was a jerk when he got onto the train. So
he shoved right past him.
Is it a class thing, or is it just because this guy was being a dick? Like and also then like I thought they were going to play with that more, but then when they get served at dinner, like it's a black waiter too, who's like a different thing. So like it's, like, is that continuing the, is this about race? Is this about class? And it's very unclear where it all comes down on.
Yeah. If I had to get one takeaway from this movie is it is about as unclear of a plot as we can get. It's so convoluted. It's so all over the place. There's so many double crosses and triple crosses.
Yeah, there's like the FBI is involved, the CIA is involved, the NYPD is involved,
the Texas Highway Patrol is involved.
Yes, the Mexican border guard gets involved. The Mexican police get involved because it's like and everybody you never know who is on whose side in that very. Like near the end, like the guy you think is the main bad guy turns on all the good on the other bad guys, and also like the climax of this movie, it is like the true villain of it all has his undoing because of the dog.
Yes.
So
yeah,
I was like the dog. Yeah.
The way the movie ends, so the dog on the poster, it turns out is owned by a Mexican government official who's like trying to stop the cartel. He bites a lot of people in this movie, and
and Eddie Griffin is carrying the dog around for most of the movie, so you think it's Eddie Griffin's dog, but then he's like, no, the dog is the center of the whole investigation.
Yes, which he says again, like almost an hour into the movie, we find out that this is what's happening.
Also, you, in case you haven't followed all of the twists and turns, they replay you all of the clips of what you need to know from earlier in the movie as they make the reveals at the end. So.
This is a movie that it's okay to not follow everything that's happening because they will spread it all out for you, lay it all on the line and say, hey, these are the only important points that you actually needed to remember. This is why this could have been a half-hour comedy pilot instead of an 80-minute comedy movie.
It's less than 90 minutes long, and it's still it's like I made my wife watch this with me. She had never seen it before, and her take of them was like, that was less than 90 minutes. It felt like way longer than that because there's so much like twisting and turning in the plots. There is so much like attempts at jokes that aren't jokes, and it just makes you feel like things like something should be happening different than is happening in front of my eyes right now.
It's such a shame too that like they didn't really lean hard enough in either of the directions of the action comedy genre, because there were a couple of jokes in here that I actually did like. There are a few winners in there. There's some diamonds in the rough within the script. A lot of the stuff, like some of the banter between Orlando and Eddie Griffin, there's some great banter in there. There's some great dialogue. What's the last movie you saw? Car Wash? Great. I loved that.
Yes.
I didn't get 5150'd. I got 1817'd. I don't even know what that is. That's great. But for a movie that is this long and is supposed to be a comedy, to have that few jokes, that few like really heavy hitting, hard hitting jokes.
And like the hardest to go for jokes are the racist ones.
Yes.
Like it was like you see like when they go to the Mexican border and this guy has to sneak around the border guards. And so he goes to the river and there's like dozens of Mexican families crossing into the United States. And it's like, oh, this is rough. This is rough.
Yeah. I think another problem that also plagues action comedy sort of in general, but especially plagues this one, is that I don't think that stuff being loud automatically means it's comedy. There's a lot of stuff, especially with the editing too, where they're screaming and there's a lot of, quick cuts to people yelling one line back and forth. And it's supposed to be a joke. You can tell it's supposed to be a joke because of the way it's edited and because this is ostensibly a comedy movie, but it's just not funny to just yell.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, especially the first half of this movie is also really carried by how you feel about Eddie Griffin's whole vibe. It's just like Eddie Griffin doing Eddie Griffin stuff, and if you like that, great. Like, it's fine, but there's not a lot else going on comedy wise, especially in the first part of this movie, and then it gets into the twisty turning parts. It is the kind of movie where there are fart jokes. There are. There are very unsubtle moments. But like you said, there's like the elements there. Something could have been good here. I think that's what's so frustrating about it, and why I was so angry in the theater when I saw this movie is that I'm like Orlando Jones, charming, and him and Eddie Griffin, cool dynamic. Like, let's do something with that instead of having it turn out that like the secretary who's murdered is actually still alive and part of the FBI. And let's have it be that the CIA is not really the CIA. The guys who seem like they're actually the good guys, one of them's a traitor and shoots the other actual good guy in the head. Like, it's just they keep twisting and turning for the sake of a twist and a turn. And like, even that could have been like a joke itself. Like, they could have made fun of that fact, but they seem very satisfied by the twists and turns they're making. Like, it's like, oh wow, this really is a revelation. Like, there's one bit near the end where they keep cutting back and forth between like Eddie Griffin's face and someone else, and like, I'm like, this is the one bit where it seems like they get how ridiculously convoluted this is, but they don't beyond that.
Yeah, I think another thing, I am actually very curious about, in terms of your experience watching it. You watched it with your mom. You saw it in theaters. Did she have the same reaction as you did? Did you both walk out?
No,
being like,
she
oh my
loved
God?
it. She loved it. She loved bad movies. She loves movies with a dog. She loves movies with black guys acting crazy. Like, that's her jam. Like, this movie was exactly what my mom wanted in a film. I always knew whenever I visit my mom, she's passed away a couple of years ago, but like, her favorite thing at the movies was go seeing like a big dumb comedy or a big dumb action movie. And hey, this is both. So, true. I remember like my favorite moment of seeing movies with my mom is we went to like a wedding of a friend of the family, and we had some time to kill before our flight, and we had never seen a Fast and Furious movie before. So we walked into Fast 5, and it was amazing. And my mom and I talked about that forever afterwards. We were on board with the Fast movies. But like, this is the worst version of that, where she was so on board and I was so not.
That's did you guys actively talk about how much you disagreed about this movie, or were you too scared after she liked it, you're like, oh, I can't?
I think I was like, good for you. Like, you're like, you deserve liking this movie. I feel very good about the fact you like this. I am sorry that I don't, but it's fine. The last really bad comedy I saw with my mom was in 2017. We went and saw the movie Father Figures, which is also really terrible. It's got Owen Wilson.
I remember that.
And who else is in this? It's Owen. I want to say Owen Wilson, and it's Ed Helms, and they are looking for whoever their real dad is, and it's basically their mom says, I slept with all these guys, and so one of them must be the father.
Oh, and like Terry Bradshaw's one of the dads.
Terry Bradshaw's one of them.
Okay,
and like, my mom loved that movie, and I it's just like, no, this is like that may be the second worst movie I've seen after Double Take. But it's like my all-time Hall of Fame is like Double Take, Father Figures, and Batman and Robin are like the worst things I've ever seen.
I mean, this movie is just, it's so bad. I wish that, like, one of the things that I really hoped it could have been done to make this movie better is if they had done an R-rated version of this, I feel like that would have solved a lot of problems, because I feel like then they would have had the leeway to go much broader with the comedy in a way that actually felt like it was purposeful and stupid for the sake of being stupid and stupid for the sake of making sure everybody's having a good time, instead of doing all of this just like low-hanging fruit nonsense that we see throughout the entirety of this movie.
I think it was this era of movies where it was really sort of the comeback of the R-rated comedy. We started to have with like teen movies like American Pie in '99 and that sort of thing. And then like I think it was still sort of that nascent phase before we started having all the big like Judd Apatow movies and Will Ferrell's sort of whole run.
Right.
And so I think that like it's sort of that weird in between where we're sort of figuring out like what do we want like a big comedy to be like? What do we want for having that thing that's really goes for it comedy wise? And this, you're like you said, it doesn't. I saw one of the reviews on Amazon's like, this is perfect for the family because there's just enough adult humor in this to get the PG-13, but just barely. Like it's barely a PG-13. And I was like, it's because it doesn't try it much, so it's just barely a PG-13.
It's such a shame that this movie, like even the scene we were talking about at the very end when the dog is engineering the murder of the big bad guy, he falls down the stairs. He's holding a gun. He, I guess, shoots himself a bunch of times accidentally while falling down the stairs. We don't really see it happen. We just hear the gunshots going off.
We see him shoot himself in the foot, and then we hear some gunshots, and it looks like he might have shot himself through the head.
That's what it seems like has happened at the very end, and they're all just like, "Oh, gross."
But they don't say what's happened. They don't show it because it's PG-13. They don't want to get too into it. But like, also, the movie is like. There's so much more possibility that it could have had it, like, or go like a lower rating. Like this could have been like a PG fun family film, and it's not that either. Like it's like there's a cute dog. There's like a bit where Eddie Griffin tells the dog to bark in Mexican or something like that.
Yeah.
And this is, but like at least like, it seems like this could have been like cute dog movie, wacky hijinks, like a Agent Cody Banks or something. But it's not that either. Like it's got too much adult stuff to be that, and not enough adult stuff to be interesting to adults.
It's a movie full of half measures, and it's such a shame because it's like I said earlier, if they had gone all in one direction with this, it would have made the movie so much more entertaining and good. Right now, it's just sitting like for me. It's the best review that I think encapsulates how I feel is from Philip Martin of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette about the best thing.
My go-to paper.
Yeah, mine too. About the best thing that can be said for Double Take is that the morning after seeing it, you don't really remember much about it. And I guarantee probably after we finish recording this episode, I am going to forget Double Take. Completely.
Yeah, it was really interesting going back and refreshing my memory about this movie and seeing which parts I remembered clearly and which parts I had like either exaggerated or didn't get enough in my mind. Because like I saw this movie once and then I saw it one more time again right before recording this, and I was like, oh, like it's like knowing what's coming, I can sort of see some of the twists coming. There's still no reason for them to happen, but at least I could see some of that. And also, it bummed me out though because there's like a great cast. Like I discovered, it was before Gilmore Girls that I saw this, but like Edward Herrmann, who's the granddad on Gilmore Girls, is in this, and he plays like the head of the bank, and he's always a delightful performer. But like he does very little in this. It's weird because he like appears at the beginning and then comes back at the end, and I'm like, wait, why are we expected to still care about these characters who haven't been in 90% of this movie? And it's got one of the actresses who played the main character's mom on Jane the Virgin. We were excited to see watching this, which I enjoyed, and she's good in this. And like everyone's solid. They just have no material to work with. Yeah.
Also, a big problem for me is with the casting of all of the white guys in this movie. At least the three older white guys, is they all look the same. And if we're already having enough trouble following what's going on in this movie, if you're going to have the only distinct thing between two of your like villainous characters that one of them has a cane and the other one doesn't, that's not great. I mean, sure, you can also tell the guy with the cane is a worse actor because he gives one of the worst line reads of the entire movie that they clearly tried to edit around at the very beginning. Our CIA
There's also like, I was just going to say, that reminds me, there's a lot of ADR lines where it seems like they were like, maybe they tried to make it more of a straight action movie originally, but there's a bunch of scenes where it's like Eddie Griffin doing ADR and you're like doing a joke on like the back of his head, because they obviously did not shoot a joke originally.
Right.
And it's like, why is this happening?
It's like that Patton Oswalt joke about writing Punch Up. That happened this entire movie. Was somebody was like, all right, this movie's not funny enough. Get Eddie, let's book him like 4 hours of booth time and let's just let him riff and see what happens.
Let him riff. Let's see what happens. All right, here are all the shots where you can't see your mouth. And even here are some of the shots where you can see your mouth, but we're going to have you ADR over it anyway. And like there's some bits where it's like, his mouth isn't moving. There's a joke I'm hearing in my ears, but I shouldn't be.
Yes, there's definitely even sometimes when it's so blatant on camera when you can see that he's saying a different word or sentence that is actually coming out of his mouth. It happened noticeably enough that I was like, come on, guys, y'all, you had to have had coverage of somebody else's face reacting, right? How did you leave this in?
Professional filmmakers. This is your career, and this is what you're choosing to do with it. Like, I hope everyone reconsidered things extensively after making this film.
I hope so.
Go on.
I was just gonna say, I think that maybe they did, but it also, I mean, this is the thing. It's released in January. Like, clearly, the studio knew they had a stinker on their hands.
Yeah.
It debuted fourth at the box office behind a bunch of other movies that were already, you got your classics like Traffic and Castaway, awards bait du jour for sure up there. This is not a hidden January gem by any means. This is your classic January nightmare.
No. Although I loved, like, when I was researching this to talk on the show, apparently it's inspired by a 1957 British thriller, which I am now way more interested in seeing. I want to see the actual, like, maybe that's the actual not comedy version of this that I should go watch. The original movie is called Across the Bridge, and it's based on a 1938 short story by the famous Graham Greene, who's like one of the all-time great writers. So it was like, we are going all the like you took this source material and you made it the worst. Like, that's basically what happened here.
Oh my God. Is there anything else that could have fixed this movie, you think, besides some of the stuff we've already talked about? Is there like, because I'm at my wit's end here. I can't think of anything else that they could have done. Like, the casting of the leads, I don't have a problem with. I like Orlando Jones and I like Eddie Griffin. I don't know. Mike, how would we fix this?
I mean, I think that, as other than like, better craft in the joke writing and that sort of thing, I think that, it could have been a thing where if you like turn down the twists by about 50% and just like had maybe like a couple of twists in the movie, then it could have been like a solid, comedy caper. Also, maybe if you just would have like had it clear, like Eddie Griffin's the FBI agent up front. Mm-hmm. Like, he doesn't have to be like pretend to be a street hustler and then be an FBI agent and then be crazy, but then still be really working with the FBI. Like, you don't need to have him change sides that many times. Mm-hmm. Like, just like have him be the streetwise FBI agent who gets Orlando Jones out of New York for some reason. I think that's like having just like have good guys and bad guys. Like, this could have worked with that. Like, those, like you said, those leads have a ton of chemistry. Like, they could have made this work as just a very straight ahead action comedy. Like, like a Rush Hour, like something like that. Like, where, and like Rush Hour does not have a bunch of twists in it. It's just a cops from different countries working together. This is the same kind of thing. Have people like from different sides of the tracks working together, but instead it's they try to do all these twists. There's a weird thing where there's like they run into like a singer in a small town, and like there's this whole scene that is shot like has her singing in a local club for no reason. They don't go to the club. Like, she's the only character who goes to the club, but that is over footage of the big action shootout happening.
With all the product placement
Yes, I
trucks,
was about
by the
to
way,
say.
that they finally are like, oh shit, we forgot to use the money that Pepsi, Mother's Cookies, and Fiji Water all gave us. All right, let's have them beat this.
You have Eddie Griffin looking out the window, and it's like, oh shit, it's the Pepsi truck. It's like, oh shit, it's the Mother's Cookies truck. And then you're like, why does that matter? Did he face off against these trucks before? Why does he know that the bad guys are in a Pepsi truck and Mother's Cookies? They don't explain any of this, but the Pepsi truck opens up, machine guns come out. It's a wild shootout for no reason.
I think that if you're gonna go watch an action comedy, I'm the only reason now I'm actually remembering some of these is because I have the list up on Wikipedia. Thank God. I don't know how I didn't think about this, but Hot Fuzz, one of my all-time favorite.
Yeah.
Not just action movies or comedy movies, but just a great movie all the way around.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think people should watch also?
I think that if you're looking for another action comedy, and by the classic, Ghostbusters, it is a movie that's is pretty actiony, pretty comedy, it's fun. And then they did the new version where it's not funny, it's just all nostalgia. And it's okay, that's cool too. But it really gets it. The Fast and Furious movies are kind of action comedies. There's a lot of comedy in there, and the comedy is better than this movie.
Yes.
So Fast Five I think is still the best one, so I recommend that. I like The Rock. I like heists. Let's check that out. I want to just if you're looking for something totally different, I just did another podcast where I was talking about how much I love a movie. We talked about Can't Hardly Wait, which is my favorite classic teen movie.
Oh, I've never seen Can't Hardly Wait.
It's real good. It's real good. It's another one that came right before all of the American Pie and all the sort of more adult teen comedies. So I feel like it's sort of the precursor to those, though, where and also the cast is filled with future stars who weren't stars yet in this. So Jamie Lee Presley is in a small part. You see Melissa Joan Hart's in it. She's a delight. It's another it's a fun high school comedy. And with some surprising emotional depth and an amazing soundtrack. It does everything right. And although it's funny because speaking of ratings and adjusting ratings, I listened to the director's commentary for that one, and they mentioned the director's commentary is almost entirely about things that they took out of the movie because they originally shot it as an R-rated movie, but then the studio got cold feet and decided no, this can't be R-rated. They got to make it PG-13. So they had to take out all of the kids at this party drinking. So there's all the underage drinking had to be edited out. There was this girl who was the drunk girl at the party, and the gag was that they put captions for everything she said because you couldn't understand the crying drunk girl. But they had to take her character basically entirely out. There's just all these jokes they talk about in the caption, or one of the things I love is there was a bunch of beer and they CGI'd a balloon over it so that some of the party has a balloon. It's just you hear all these things they had to change, and I'm I really want to see that version of the movie.
Wow.
But I guess the footage doesn't exist or whatever because they re-released the DVD and it had extras finally, which the original didn't have, but they were all weird film shots that were deteriorating footage, and I'm this there's no original of this, I guess.
That's crazy. I didn't even realize there was a comedic version of the replacing the guns with walkie-talkies from ET.
Yeah, but exactly.
Switching out beer for balloons, that's
yes,
it's pretty high up there.
I really enjoyed that. So that's my actual good movie recommendation for y'all. Don't watch this. Maybe put it on the background while you are doing errands or paying bills or something, because it would be at least then you would not understand it in the way that you don't understand it even if you focus on it intently.
Yeah. If you really just tune in to the last 20 minutes of this movie, then you'll have seen the entire movie. You get everything good. Yeah,
check out the opening, check out the ending. Opening with Eddie Griffin and Orlando Jones, they have some fun dynamics up top. The ending with all the twists, you're okay, cool. That's a thing. The middle of the movie is just a drag of them. It's basically just them going over the Mexican border, then back over the Mexican border the other way repeatedly.
Yeah, that's all you really need. You don't need
basically
a whole lot.
it.
That's basically it. Mike, It's been great having you on. Where can the listeners find you? Of course, 30 Rock book you can buy, I'm sure, wherever you buy books.
Wherever fine books are sold, yes. It's available on Amazon. Get it from an indie bookstore and support your local indie bookshop. It's available at libraries. I want people to check it out. I did an audiobook for it as well. Spent like a week in a recording studio recording the audiobook. So if you aren't sick of my voice yet, you can check out more of it, talking about 30 Rock. You can also find me. I'm on Twitter at Mike Rowe. That's Mike Rowe, Mikeroe, no W. I'm not the Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs. Despite some people on Twitter telling me I'm a fake. So you can find me there. Find me. I do radio for KPCC Public Radio and the website LAist.com. I write about arts and entertainment, so come check me out there. And it's always a joy to get to hear from people, and would love to hear what you think.
Check out Mike's work. Go give him a follow. And especially, I know we have a lot of people from LA who are listening to this podcast. Go support your local public radio station, folks. And
wherever you are, I want you to support your local public radio station. If it happens to be KPCC here in LA, great. If it's somewhere else, great. That's all the places you can find me. I've been getting real into TikTok, but I'm not actually making TikToks yet. So that's like my next social media goal is to not be so self-conscious that I can deal with seeing myself on camera for a TikTok.
I believe in you, Mike. I think you can make it happen.
That really means a lot to me, Jay.
Yeah. You can find me at Diet J on Twitter and Instagram, jlightcomedy.com for upcoming show dates. I also have a Patreon for the show. If you like what you hear, go subscribe for bonus episodes. You can also get access to my film library. Good news.
Nice. Subscribe to the Patreon. I love a Patreon. I subscribe to Patreons. I like supporting creators who make cool stuff. So please, you listen to the show. You're at the end of the show. You listen to this whole thing. That means you like it. So go subscribe to Jay's Patreon right now.
That's a great point, Mike. Couldn't have said it better myself. That's a guy who knows how to run a pledge drive. I'll tell you what.
Right. I'm used to talking about why I care about things and why I love them. And, I like a good podcast. I love, podcasts and like podcasts that are actually planned out and have a premise to them instead of people just talking. Like that's wonderful. So Jay, you are doing a good thing. People support Jay.
Thank you. And people go support Mike. Mike, thanks again. It was great having you.
Of course.
This has been Blockbusting. Go see something good for a change.